Perfect. So, good afternoon, everyone joining us today. My name is Jessica Rorson, and I'm with the IBDS program and with Sage Hill Community Futures. Before we get started, I just want to acknowledge that we are coming to you from Treaty 6 territory and homeland of the Métis, and we pay our respects to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of this place. Today, we're lucky to have a Sage Hill Community Futures member with us today. Taylor is in Wakaw, Saskatchewan, and has a very, very beautiful shop called The Town Shop and Gifts. Before I get started, I'm just going to welcome Jenny Glessman from the Sage Hill office to say hello.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be here. It's nice to have one of our members as a presenter today. Just a little bit for those that don't know about Community Futures. There's 13 offices across the province. We're split into regions. We offer loans, advice, and support. Most people know us about the loans, but we also do like workshops like this. And so we're here to help small business owners get started or maybe expand or, those types of things. So we're excited to have Taylor here to tell us about her entrepreneurial journey. So instead of listening to me, we're going to turn it over to Jessica and to Taylor to tell us all about it.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, so what we're doing today is we're doing a bit of a roundtable chat. Taylor and I'm just going to ask her some questions. She's just going to kind of fill us in because we've found that it's really helpful to hear stories from people who are running businesses within our region and within the province. It's all great, the resources that we have available to us all are great. The supports are great, but to actually hear of somebody's own personal journey and their struggles and their successes and share that is very powerful. And I think you learn, I think, quicker when it's somebody that you can relate to. So welcome, Taylor. And like you were just saying, you're in the process of opening store number 2 and moving all in the same weekend, plus managing your current beautiful little shop. I was in there over the weekend for the first time, and it's beautiful. And I have to say, all of the items that you have curated to put inside that store are beautiful and obviously a reflection of who you are and what you want to be accomplishing. And so that was just really lovely to see. So welcome. So I know that you purchased this business, from your mom. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so we can start from the beginning. My mom was a hairdresser for many, many years, and she had quite a few businesses through her life. So I think that's where I caught the bug from. She was the entrepreneur in the family. So I got that from her. So she was a hairdresser, and there was a lady that she worked with who owned the building and kind of owned the salon. And then she was retiring. So she went to my mom and said, "Okay, either you got to find somewhere else to do hair or you buy the building and you stay." So my mom was 50 when this happened. And my dad was kind of also thinking about retiring. So she had the choice of either one, do I start a small business at 50 and see what happens? Or do I just do hair at home and kind of wait and see? But she's quite ambitious. So she started the beginning of Town Shop. So the beginning of Town Shop was kind of the gift shop, how it is, but she also had a salon chair and she did hair there for a couple years. So this was fall of 2018, and then COVID happened, and COVID kind of changed everything because she was doing hair and there were lots of restrictions and lots of things with retail and all those things that kind of happened at that time. So she ended up quitting doing hair and just running the gift shop after COVID because she had a lot of older clientele and lots who were immunocompromised and everything. So she ripped out all her salon stuff in her sink and we put in clothing. So to this day, the biggest thing that's ever happened for us was bringing in clothing because it's such a consumable. And I'll talk about this more when we kind of talk about product selection and what that looks like and yada, yada, yada. But consumables were just so huge and still continue to be such a huge or hold a huge space in the retail market. So when she brought that in, and then 2022 came along and my father retired. He worked for SaskPower for, I think it was 37 years.
Wow.
So quite the opposite of an entrepreneur. He was very just like the 9 to 5 every day. So he retired in 2022, and my mom decided that she also wanted to retire. I, at the time, was working for the health region in Prince Albert, and I was a recruiter because I went to Edwards Business School. I have a commerce degree. I graduated. I moved back to Wakaw at the time, and I was working from home during COVID, hiring COVID nurses for the PA hospital. So I did that for 2 years. And then my mom called me and said, "Hey, I'm going to be retiring January of 2022. I know you love the business and I know you love coming to help out, and you can buy it if you want it and it can be yours, or I'll sell it and we'll move on. But you have a big decision to make." So I hemmed and hawed and hemmed and hawed. And then I figured, I don't know if I want to do the 9 to 5 thing for the rest of my life. I had a wonderful job and it was all good. But I was like, I believe I'm 27 now. So what's the math there? I was 23 because I wasn't 24 yet. I was 23 at the time, and I quit my full-time job with the SHA that I just spent friggin' it felt like an eternity getting a degree for. And I quit that, and I had a little bit of money in my savings, and I was like, let's do it. So I jumped, and I bought the business January 2022. And ever since then, it has been my full-time thing. I've been self-employed ever since.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That
So
is that is a huge risk. You didn't even attempt to do the side hustle first. You just went in
yeah, we just went
full.
straight in. Well, I
Yeah.
did actually, that is a little bit of a lie, because in 2019 I bought a candle business from an older lady in St. Brew, and I had been making candles and selling them to other stores in Saskatchewan. So at my busiest point of that, which I actually still run that business to, I believe I have 22 stores in Saskatchewan that I sell candles to.
Wow.
So that was kind of my tip, like my toes
Yeah.
in the
Yeah,
water of the whole
absolutely.
entrepreneur thing. And then, yes, so then I did buy a town shop after that, and now I still run both those businesses.
And where do you make the candles out of? Your home?
So no, actually town shop, and I wish I was there when you were there because I would
Yeah,
have
yeah.
loved to show you, give you the spiel, but I do have, like, I would call it a little tiny bedroom in my town shop building now that is my candle room.
I'll come back.
So that's kind of where, yeah, come back and I'll show you.
Yeah.
But it's very crammed. It doesn't fit a lot, which is obviously, we'll talk about my expansion and buying that second building later. But yeah, that was a part of it as well. So it all is made, everything's from that building.
They
There's just a
smell
comment.
amazing.
There's just a
Thank
comment
you.
in the comment that says, "I love those candles." And actually, the last time I was there, I bought one of your candles and I gave it to my daughter. She loved it because they have that little seed, and she actually
Yes.
planted the seeds and went through the whole thing. So
Oh,
there's such a
good.
story behind the candles as well. So
Yes. Yes,
That is so
absolutely.
good. Now,
Yeah.
Was it tricky for you guys in terms of like um putting a price tag on that? Was or and the nitty-gritty of the financial components of buying a business that your mom owned? Was that hard? Was that challenging for you guys?
Okay, so I will dive this part is, like, not overly personal. I'm very
Yeah.
open to share.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
at the time, I was dating a guy from Waka actually as well, and we were together for quite a few years. And I, at the time, this is something we should touch on too, is I couldn't get a mortgage to save my life. So the building I'm in was not very expensive when I bought it from my mom, but no one would give me a mortgage without a cosigner for anything. I had such a struggle finding any kind of financing, finding anything, especially individually. So at the time, my boyfriend at the time said, "You know what? I'll buy the building for you," which he had no problem getting funding for, which still to this day kind of grinds my gears that men seem to have such an easier time getting funding than women do. But So then he bought the building for me, and then things didn't end up working out very well for us. And at about 6 months later, I decided I was leaving. So we broke up, and he still owned the building. So I was in a very, very tricky situation because I knew I can't get funding for anything. Um, my ex now owns this building, and I'm in a little bit of a terrible situation. So my parents and my ex and I, we all sat down and we decided this is what the price is going to be. And my parents actually bought the building back from him again.
Okay.
So they sold it to him, and then they bought it back from him after like about 6 months later because things just didn't end up working out for us. So my advice for anybody on this call ever is, and the biggest lesson I've learned there is be very, very careful who you bring into your business, either as an investor or as a partner or anything, because it ended up working out in the end for me and everything ended up being fine. But if I could go back in time and talk to myself again, I would say you need to be more careful with who
Mm-hmm.
you allow in your business and try to keep it as private and as close knit
Mm-hmm.
as you can for very obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm. No, I
So
think that's very wise.
Very
yeah,
good
and
advice.
it's just real advice that I feel like no one talks about because no one
Mm-hmm.
wants to be like, hey, this is what happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. So then my parents did own the building for a few months, and I actually ended up finding financing
Good.
after months and months and months of looking. So then a few months after that, I was able to buy my building back from my parents, and then I was the 100% owner of my business. And there
Good.
was a question that we were going to talk about maybe a little later
You
about
can
one of
bring it
your
up now. Yeah.
proudest moments of a business owner. And I think saying when you can sit down and be like, I own this all by myself without anyone else or any other influence, it's just like on paper, it's 100% Taylor Hubert. That is quite a euphoric feeling,
Yes.
especially if you can get there and especially if you had to struggle. And I think as women business owners, we all struggle so much with finding financing and finding things and just really getting all the gears to click. But
Mm-hmm.
once those gears click, there is not much else like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. I think it's wise, and I think that I think goes across so many levels of life.
Yes.
Speaking just mostly about women, but just in terms of you said you couldn't get a mortgage or even a business loan. Like
Right.
it's just about really making wise financial choices, and just the education piece about money um,
Yes.
is really important. And
Oh, it's
learning. I
important.
remember years ago somebody saying to me, make sure you always have your own personal bank account. Doesn't matter if you're married or not, just have one bank account that's just yours and put
Yeah.
money in it, right? And it's true. We are we are born to have a family minded, we're a family mindset,
Yes.
but it's good
Yes.
to also a in, have the independence. So good for you. That's very exciting and very encouraging. Um, so obviously there were some unexpected surprises during during this succession process, and very emotional. A breakup and the business, like go that time for you would
Yeah.
have been very stressful.
Yeah, I do not
Um,
advise going to business and breaking up with your partner of 3.5 years all at the exact same time.
yeah,
If
no, I'm
you
sure
can
that was
space it
horrible.
out, I advise you do so, yeah.
Yeah,
Basic.
absolutely. So then have you like balanced kind of what your mom had started with the legacy of the store, like, and what have you kind of done differently, and how has that
Yeah,
gone?
so mom's thought process when we kind of sat down, and her and I did a lot of the building blocks at the very beginning together. Like I was quite involved from the get-go, even when it was hers. But our main focus and something that we really wanted our brand and everything about the store to focus on is local. So when she brought in, I still have photos of how empty the store looked. Like it looked like there was maybe only 100 pieces, and now I would say there's many, many, many for those of you who have been there. But everything was local and everything was Canadian that she brought in, and all of her companies were lots of Saskatchewan people, and she was really in that phase. And I think that was such an important thing because it was COVID and it was all of those things changing and happening. And I took that, I would say, and I ran with it, to the point now I was thinking before this call, I would say 85% of our products in store are Canadian, and I would say about 50% of that is Saskatchewan.
Mm.
So we have a very, very tiny percentage of our products that are in store that are not Canadian. And that's something that we're really proud of, and that's something we try to champion over and over and over again is where is stuff coming from? How is it made? Is it ethical? Is it something we can support?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the core, and I think my mom created that core, or we created it together, I think you could argue. And then I think we just let it flow out. And I think just with the wave of shopping local and people wanting that experience and not wanting to do Temu and Shein and Amazon so
Mm-hmm.
much, I think it was just the perfect timing, and it just took kind of care of itself after that.
And so your customers, like you're in Wakaw, are your customers local or where are they coming from? What
Yeah,
does
so
that look
that's
like?
a good
'Cause
question
yeah.
too, and I have a little advice for if you're doing retail rurally that I actually don't find a lot of people talking about, but it's been huge for me. So a lot of my customers, Waka is obviously very lake orientated. So in the summer, our population triples, if not quadruples. Like in town, I think we have 1,100 people and we have 800 cabins. So you can just imagine every cabin has a family generally, and then the regional park. So we have a high demand. And that is my bread and butter, is like the July
Mm-hmm.
and August is when I have my most sales and my most everything because of the traffic. But during the year, I'm still pretty steady and still pretty constant. But I believe a lot of that has to do with when I order products and when I bring things in, I bring a very limited quantity of a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
like if I'm ordering a hat, instead of ordering 10 green hats with a flower on them, I'll order two. And then I'll order blue. And then I'll do this. And I think especially when you're rural and you're in a small community where you want to get those repeat customers coming even
Mm-hmm.
once to come check it out, you have to have new stuff all the time and you have to have different stuff. So my
Mm-hmm.
advice for anybody in the retail or even not, if you can figure out a way to apply that in a different way, is just lots of variety and a
Mm-hmm.
small quantity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's brilliant. But go ahead, Jenny, as a
I do have a
store
question
owner.
in that. Yeah, I have my store hat on now. My husband and I own Bruno Lumber, and I run a little flower shop and a gift shop in there. So my question
Yes.
to you is when you talk about buying two of or three, how do you find those suppliers that will allow you only to buy two of or a small quantity? I always find they want you to take 24. I don't want 24 because not everybody wants the same lawn ornament.
Right,
Do you,
exactly.
so how do you find those people?
Honestly, I would say local makers will sell you
Okay.
less quantities. Is that what that's what I find it
Yeah.
myself? Like obviously there's big brands that are Canadian, like let's say Matt Nat. I sell a lot of Matt Nat, so we'll just use that for example. Obviously their quantities are very set and everything is set. They have low quantities, so that doesn't really matter. But when it comes to more local makers and stuff, usually their things are lower. But if you do have to buy in bulk, which obviously we all do, I just try to make sure that I'm very confident in what I'm buying in bulk.
Mm-hmm.
And then if
Nope,
I
those
do
are
buy something in bulk, I try to market the crap out of it
Mm-hmm.
and like
Yep.
post it and make sure it's
Mm-hmm.
reminded. And when people come in, hey, this is what's new, this is what's up. So then
Mm-hmm.
really focus on it and things can fly. Whereas obviously if I buy two purses, I don't need to make 4 videos on 2 purses because they'll be gone by the end of the week if I post the
yeah.
one kind of idea. But
Oh,
yeah, I
perfect.
would say a lot of kind of bringing people in and doing that is the marketing thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we can
Do you
touch on that
yeah,
later.
do people, are they able to buy online from you or buy and then you ship
Yes,
it?
I have a website and I do have quite a few people who like the online ordering and stuff. A
Mm-hmm.
challenge I'm facing right now is just juggling it all because my inventory is not automatic. Like I don't have a scanner. So if I add like let's say jeans and they come in sizes 25 to 32 or whatever, and someone comes that day and buys the only 25, and then someone goes and
Oh,
orders it online and I don't update it. That is one of my struggles right now that I'm trying to navigate and generalize. But as a lot of you know, I have an older POS system, but to buy a new Shopify POS is like $4,000.
didn't know it was that expensive.
If you buy everything in the new iPad and all of the trinkets and everything, yeah. So that's a part of the thing to look at too, is you kind of have to
Yeah.
having everything centralized and like done properly and stuff generally takes quite a bit of money to
Yeah,
do as
for sure. But if you were starting over again, maybe you'd invest
yeah,
in that now, right?
exactly.
As a new business starting, making sure that
Absolutely.
your POS system is like you're forward thinking about
Yes.
what you're going to need in the future. Well, I think it's great. And I mean, you have how many staff do you have?
I have 4, I would say, casual part-time staff, and then I have also the ice cream shack. I don't know, we haven't touched on that at all, but Town Shop also has an ice cream shack in the back, and we do hard ice cream. So then I have 2 staff there, for May, June, July, and August. So I would say when we're full functioning in summer, I have about 6 or 7 staff. But in the
Yeah,
winter, hardly anyone really.
for sure. No, I was just thinking about your product, and if it's a small enough
Yeah.
staff who are working the store, you can kind of keep track of the jeans,
Yes,
things like that,
exactly.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
A
which
lot
is great.
My staff is also the, older ladies, so it's like my mom and my auntie and they don't like the laptop and the website, they don't like it, they don't wanna touch it, that has
Yeah.
nothing. They wanna go there and they wanna sell a sweater and a candle, and that's what they wanna do. They don't wanna think about all that back end stuff. So, that's something to think about too, is and then once you let people into the website, you're really letting them, like, into your financials and your bookkeeping and your
Yeah.
everything. That's something you have to kinda be conscious about as well, as who you want to pass that off to,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
and this is like the $1,000,000 question as a business owner, is it something I keep or is it something I pass off?
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't, then what's the next thing, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
so say maybe I keep all that and that's something I do because it's core to the business. Well, then what's the next thing I can pass off so that my plate isn't constantly overflowing?
True. Yeah. But you're the face of your business. I mean, in terms of your social media, you
Of
make
course.
great content. It has to be you.
Yeah, exactly. So that's I think a lot of business owners will feel very deeply when you say like that's the $1,000,000 business owner question is what do I keep for me? What's important for me to have? And what are the other things that I can pass off to someone else?
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, it's doing well.
Yes,
Like I see your
absolutely.
posts and I'm like, oh, look at that bag.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And then time goes, oh, I see it again, right? It's just,
Yes.
but you're good at putting the ideas, the
Yes.
wants in somebody's mind. So you're good at that. So obviously you might not feel sometimes that your commerce background was worth it. It's worth it.
Oh,
It's
it's
just
absolutely
you're
worth it.
utilizing it in different ways that
Yes,
you didn't
absolutely.
think. So yeah.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about your new building. Like what's happening?
Yeah, okay, so absolutely. So another thing, we're in small town real estate. Ever since I bought the building I was in, I've always wanted more space. And I think once you, or if any of you have come to my store, especially like my candle room, and see all the things that we run out of that space, it is quite small. I would say my building is only 650 square feet, and there's no basement or anything. So we're pretty jam-packed for the amount of product that we have in there. So I've felt that way for quite a few years, is that we were just a little bit crammed. And then this building I've always wanted came for sale at the end of the block that I'm on. So it came for sale and My mom's a real estate lover, so she's on there all the time. So she sent it to me at 9 a.m. and she said, look, this was just posted. You've been wanting it for so long. I call it, and maybe this isn't the right exact terminology, but I think in a lot of small towns, we're seeing a lot of Asian investors buying buildings and running, I'm going to say this very loosely, running different businesses out of them for a certain amount of years. And then when they do whatever they're trying to do, these buildings generally come back up for sale. And then their businesses that they ran out of them diminish or whatever happens. I think in a small town, and I think I can speak for probably all of us on this call, that's really incredibly frustrating when you see a building that you've wanted. It was for me, at least for 3 years, sitting there empty, offering Mandarin Chinese lessons that no one ever took, or that they wouldn't answer your phone call when you're trying to grind, trying to run a business, trying to do what you do, and you see that. That's incredibly frustrating. And it's just so terrible for the town and for the tourism and for anybody who's trying to start a business and make things go rurally. So the 5 years on this building ended up coming up and it was posted. So I was in there at 11 o'clock. So it was posted at 9 a.m. I was there 11 a.m. We put an offer down. We said, we know what it is. Like, this is just what we wanted to do. I got a small business grant for the current building that I'm in. So I got that grant in 2022. So it's for 5 years because it came with a loan as well. If anybody is Métis and has ever worked with Clarence Campo or has any questions about where to start with Clarence Campo or how things like that work, please message me or call me. I have fantastic contacts. They've been incredible for me. So they have a 5-year philosophy, whereas if they help you invest in your business or in a building or whatever, that you have to be there for 5 years, which makes perfect sense. Obviously, you can't take a grant and take all these wonderful things and then sell it all immediately, of course. But so I went to Clarence Campo and I said, hey, I'm making this switch. My business is staying the same. Everything is staying the same, but I'm just strapped. So I just want to expand and move over. They told me no. And they said, we can't do that. It's just not going to happen. You have to stay in your building till 2027. So I was in a pickle. As you can see, I was in a little bit of a pickle. And then I sat down with my parents one day and I said, okay, well, what do I do? Like, I can't have 2 buildings and 2 businesses for 2 years. Like, that's just insane. And my mom said, why don't you open a summer store, because our summer traffic is so busy and so insane, and run a pop-up shop for 2 summers. And she's like, the hope is you could make enough money to cover your utilities and your bills for the second building in these 2 summers. And then once your 2 years is up, sell the building you're in, the smaller one, and then move over and transition, and you'll be none the wiser. So that is what we're in the middle of right now, is we're going to see if this little pop-up shop that I'm opening and everything I'm doing can help me pay all these bills for these 2 years, make a go of it, and then we'll see what happens after the 2 years. But I guess the moral of the story is entrepreneurship is never what you think it's going to be, and you have to be constantly moving and pivoting and turning and doing things that you maybe thought you would never have to do. But generally, I always just say, if you really believe it in your gut, and I've had a lot of conversations with women entrepreneurs about running your business through your mind and your brain versus running it through your gut and your knowing, and what the difference is there and what that looks like. And I believe most of the ladies, or most of the people on the call, are ladies. I can't really see, but it's different when you're a woman and you trust your gut and you trust your knowing and you know versus your brain. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about women run businesses, is you see more that like internal dialogue. Yes, you can tell when someone runs their business through intuition versus just like money and paper and graphs and what that looks like. And that's something that I've always really wanted to focus on, is this is just like a big aspect of me and who I am, and I want to run it that way. for what I think is right. And I always say, if you work your butt off and you make the best decision and you do what's good for the greater good and for the people and for you, I think generally if you try hard enough, you should succeed.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's wise. That's a scary move for sure. But you're obviously ambitious, and so you don't want to just be in the little store. You want more, and you've been waiting patiently and all
Yeah,
those things. So I think, and what you're doing for for the economic development piece of Wakaw and the tourism piece is you are really helping the town out by
absolutely.
bringing tourism and more people into the town itself, away from campgrounds, to come and poke around
Right.
and buy all the things in your stores.
Yeah. And not even
And
just like for my store specifically, but I
mhm,
always say like a rising tide will float all boats.
mhm,
I think there's been a lot of other wonderful businesses that have come to Waka, and we're starting to see a boom with like the
mhm,
Shecan and Alibi Vodka and Wild Rose and all of those things, as well as the train. And we're starting to see the tide rise, and we're starting to see all these boats come and rise with the tide. And I think it's just a really beautiful thing to be a part of,
mhm. I
is just
agree.
watching.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's great. How do you manage your bookkeeping and things like that? I know you said you held most things quite close, but do you have somebody else that you outsource any portion of anything out to?
So a huge, huge thing for me last year, and I think a lot of people can touch on this, but last year I was doing it everything myself, and by the end of the year, I was quite burnt out to a
Hmm.
point where I had to sit down and have a couple conversations. And one of my goals was to practice my offloading, which we were working on. So I do have a bookkeeper now and a full-time accountant, and I completely offboarded all of that. And that has been huge, huge, huge.
Yeah.
And I think once whatever business you run or whoever you are, once you can start letting go of those little things and paying the professionals to do what they need to do, it makes your life a lot easier. Plus,
Hmm.
I was never really a bookkeeper or anything to begin with, so
Hmm.
um, I feel a lot more confident too, like with my business, knowing like my bookkeeping is done properly, my taxes are paid properly. I'm
Hmm.
confident I'm not going to get a letter from CRA in 5 years saying I owe a whack ton of money. Like it's also a peace of mind that you pay for as well, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of the vendors that you have, you said that you have a lot of local. How do they find you, or how do you find them? What's kind of, do you have people like coming to you and saying, "Hey, can you put my product in your store?"
Yes, so I would say a lot of both. I think I was not lucky, but I was very in the space with my candle making. So with my candle making, I do a bunch of trade shows all across Saskatchewan with other local handmade vendors. So we always said when we went to trade shows that it's the best place to shop,
Mm,
especially like the bigger trade shows where they have applications and it's all just like people and they pick the best 50 vendors out of 400 or whatever. Going to shows like that was so huge for us because you're finding local people who are very proud of their business, who go to a trade show and do all the things because as a lot of you know, I don't know if there's a lot of makers. I see Megan here, but doing a trade show over the weekend and setting up your booth and everything is not for the faint of heart, especially
hmm.
for some of the big shows where you're buying a table for $800 for the weekend and you spending 5 6 hours setting up and then 5 6 hours taking down. um, so usually the vendors who go to those are pretty die hard and are very confident and generally quite established in their business. So I've had a lot of success filling my store with vendors like that.
That's so smart.
Yeah.
That is so smart. Yeah. And I know we had Megan on last month and she was talking about that whole process and the networking that happens among the makers is,
Yes.
I mean, and the connections and the relationships and the friendships and all
Yeah.
that, which is like its own little ecosystem in itself, is these makers. Um
I'm
that
just going
is
to pause there.
Yeah.
Something that I think that's really important and that I'm still thinking about a lot, that people don't really talk about when you're self-employed, I would say is like, and I don't want to say freedom because I feel like freedom's such a wonderful, fantastic term, but it's such a sense of individualism and you're by yourself and you work by yourself and you make your decisions by yourself and you run things by yourself and you are your main person, right? And I think we don't have, I talk, a lot of my girlfriends are teachers and social workers, and we talk lots about coworkers and how they play into people's lives and what that looks like. But when you're self-employed to a certain extent, and you work generally by yourself, but you have no coworkers. So there is a huge, I want to call it like a void or a gap, I would say, in self-employed people's lives that
Mhm.
you have to be so okay with yourself and so okay with your decision making and how you run things. But there's also no one to turn to call that understands. So I'm quite lucky because I have my mom and I call her all the time and I say, "Hey, what would you do? What is this? What is this?" But like a mentorship. But I find it so, so beautiful when you can sit and talk to someone who knows exactly what you're talking about. Because
Mhm.
when you're self-employed and you're doing things on your own, it's so difficult to explain to your teacher friend or your social worker friends, like, how your life is just so completely different. And I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, I'll speak for myself, but you kind of feel like you're on an island. And when you go to
Mhm.
these shows and you meet the other makers and the other self-employed people, you feel so much less like you're on an island. And I
Mhm.
think that's huge, is just like that connection,
Mhm.
self-employed, because I feel like we lack it so dearly day to day, is that when
Mhm.
you can find connections and people who understand, I think that's just huge.
Mhm.
I think you've said that so well because my
Mhm.
husband, like I said, my husband and I own a business, and lots of times we're still working late at night because it's a busy time of year, and someone's phoning, can you chat? And we're like, no, sorry, I got to work. And sometimes people don't understand what you're saying because we're not done at 5 o'clock.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think you've summed that up so
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
And it's like always the little things that I think a lot of people don't understand. I'm at the age right now where I'm a bridesmaid because all my friends are getting married. But a perfect example, something I really struggled with this spring, is my best friend's getting married in Newfoundland on July long weekend, which is by far my
Oh.
weekend of the entire year, by far. So, and she asked me to be a bridesmaid. So of course I love her, and of course I'm going. But things that people who aren't self-employed understand is like, before I even think about buying a ticket or doing anything, I'm paying $1,000 in wages off the hop before I even think about attending anything.
Mhm.
And there's all those expenses and all those things that people who have a 9 to 5 who get vacation time and stat holidays and all those things understand. And I
Mhm.
think there's lots, and I think that just we could probably sit here for 5 hours and think of a million examples about being self-employed and how that's different for everybody. But, it's hard to explain, and it's
Mhm.
hard to feel understood, I think is a huge part of it.
Mhm. I agree. And as a self-employed person, also, I can relate 100% to what you're saying. But also, there's a sense of when you don't have any other people on your island who are close to you, for myself personally, I don't share anything because,
Right.
like, I keep things quite private. Well, number one, nobody's asking because they don't get it. Um,
Absolutely.
and if you start to share, it seems pretty overwhelming to to just any Joe Blow who isn't doing what you're doing. So
Right.
I think that it would be nice to formulate or to create some relationships with other people so that there can be some chatting,
Yeah,
because it is a unique position. And
completely.
when you're at the grocery store at, you know, 10:30 in the morning on a Tuesday, and people are like, "What do you do? What do you well, like, don't you work?" Yeah, I work, right? So it's just
I
very
actually
different.
85 hours this week, but I am here on a Tuesday at 10:30. I understand. Yes.
Yeah.
That's completely what it is.
Yeah.
But I think something that I really think about is I had a conversation a while ago and I will never forget it. I think it's the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life. But I was talking to another woman entrepreneur, and she said, if you crash, your business crashes. And she's like, and if you crash hard enough, it's something you will never get back. So I still think about that every single day to this day when we talk about the isolation of being a business owner or the individualism, or let's call it freedom or whatever it is, and I'm seeing this all on social media wherever I look, is closing doors, closing doors, closing doors. And a lot of it is burnout. And lots of doors closing are burnout. And I think we, especially as women who are wearing all kinds of hats and all kinds of emotional baggage and trying to carry everyone and everything, and I think it takes a lot to be very, very thoughtful about where you are in your burnout cycle and how you need to make sure that you take care of yourself, because if you can't do you first, then you'll have no business. And I think that was harsh advice at the time, but I think it's something I needed to hear, and I think it's part of the reason that Town Shop is still open today.
So that being said, how do you take care of yourself? Because you have a busy weekend coming up, and here you are today. Like, what are you also doing to make sure that you're not crashing?
Yeah, I also have another quote. I promise I won't quote you guys all day, but they always say if you're not sure what to do, you should do self-care. So I've kind of been trying to live by that. Is if I'm not working, what am I doing to take care of myself? I'm in a unique situation. I don't have kids. I just have a spouse and a doggy. So that's a little easier for me to take the time to do things like that than, say, a lot of mothers and people who have more responsibilities, so to speak. But just anything you can do to take care of yourself. My girlfriend and I started going on morning walks every morning outside now that it's spring. For an hour, we just walk and we talk, and it's been huge for both of us. Going outside, taking holidays. A huge thing that I got into is putting my phone on do not disturb. Especially during the day, or especially when you're working, because I'm sure we can all attest, but the phone does not stop ringing ever. At least for me, it's a supplier, retailer, FedEx or UPS or a credit card, or everyone is always calling me, and it can be very overstimulating and very overwhelming. So I started knowing when I need a break and putting my phone on do not disturb. So when I wake up in the morning, my phone will be on do not disturb till I get to the store at 9:30. Then I turn my phone on all day, and then 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock comes, my phone goes back on do not disturb, and I try to just mosey on with my evening. Um, but everybody's different, obviously, and what works for me won't work for you. But that's something that I've been learning to manage, and I think it's been huge.
Absolutely. I think that's very wise. Does anyone have any questions for Taylor that's joined us? Any comments?
Yeah, I would love some comments or questions.
I don't
Yeah,
have
Megan.
any questions, but you're awesome, Taylor.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks,
You're so
Megan.
wise beyond your years. Seriously.
I think you're pretty fantastic too.
Oh, this is great.
A lot of my self-care is going to PA yoga for Megan.
Yeah.
Namaste is very important.
Yeah. Yes. No. And we've been at markets together, but I need to come to your store. So I'm gonna message you after and find a time and come. We'll have a coffee or an ice cream together.
Yeah.
So I'd love to do that.
And like, I think something that's so huge is just if you can find, I'm very pro woman, obviously. If you could find women in spaces that you can talk and collaborate and communicate with is just like so huge. And even if you can be like, hey, Megan, this is what happened to me this week. you're the only person who's another maker. Did you hear what happened to this trade show? Blah, 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 blah. Like, to be able to just have those little conversations and to feel like that connection and that to your business, I think just makes a huge difference.
Oh yeah, and entrepreneurship is definitely isolating, and so it's I'm leaning into those connections for sure.
Yes.
Tanya's also on the call from PA Prince Albert Yoga also, and so running the studio as a group of women now is like a game changer from when I was running it alone. That was extremely isolating.
Yeah.
And I shut it down, owning it by myself. So there you go. It just proves that point of yeah.
And I think it happens to anyone. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever followed Kat's Creamery, but she was huge. She's from Watson. And I think she posted that she sold $1 million worth of ice cream. And she was in, I think, 1,000 stores, including all the superstores and the co-ops and everything. But she was a single mom. And she made that post. And we were entrepreneurship friends, and we always kept a close track. But a week later, after that post, she posted that she was hospitalized and that her body just completely shut down from stress, from everything that happened, and she had to close her doors. And that was 2 years ago, and she hasn't been able to open since. And I think we need to, as women who are looking for longevity in our businesses, obviously is what we want. No one would ever dream of burning out and having to close your business. But I think we need to look around and see what's going on and make sure that we're taking care of ourselves so that we can do what we need to do and keep our businesses open and running and healthy.
I think that's so well said. I'm just going to put my Sage Hill hat on for a minute because I heard your financing dilemmas, and that's where, and I got to say this, I'm sorry, but as Community Futures offices, that's what we're here for, is to help those entrepreneurs that can't find financing or not sure. We do a different type of financing. It's called character. So we want to know what makes you want to do what you're doing, what your passion is. And lots of times we've just introduced our women's initiative fund that's directed at women entrepreneurs. So for everybody on the call, even if you're not from our region, like I know there's a couple from the Prince Albert area, and that there's offices out there, and that's what we're here for. Not just the training like this, but because that financing piece can be so heavy on people, and it can be daunting. And like I know from my husband and I, trying to live through COVID and the business, it was a hard time for a lot of businesses, and they're still trying to dig out of it. So just remember, your Community Futures office might be there to help you as well. Take some of that pressure away.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Like I can say that we started a side hustle, my family and I. We opened a mobile hot dog cart called the Wiener Wagon last summer. And
they're very good. I've been there. They're awesome.
And so, but I mean, I am also Métis, and I tried to go through Clarence Campo and had a terrible time. And so we ended up just going, we went through Sage Hill, and I was able to qualify for the Women's Initiative Fund. And I thought for sure I would get financing through Clarence Campo. But and I'm sure that there are lots of businesses who do and are great and all that. It's just how they had it set up for me. It didn't work. The process didn't work for me. And because I was already proficient in some of the steps, it just didn't work. I'm not going to sit here and bash Clarence Campo by any means, but there is definitely options for everyone depending on where you're at. And I have found, because I work with a lot of rural entrepreneurs, that Community Futures financing just does work for so many people in rural. So, yeah.
Another option. Take that stress away. We don't want everybody, because there's so many wonderful businesses out there. And if we can take away some of that stress, that's so important.
Yeah. And obviously, as any self-employed person knows, any financials is huge always.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you need a wiener wagon hot dog cart to show up at your Wakaw business, you let me know.
I would love that. We're gonna have to talk later.
I know, that's so funny. Yeah, for sure.
Creation,
But
you
if-
know, everybody's got something. That's so great.
Right.
Just so
I
funny.
guess, is there any more questions or comments or anything?
I don't,
I was
yeah, I
wondering.
don't think, do you have anything else that you wanted to add? I think this has been really awesome.
This has been so informative.
Yeah, I'm glad. I think I tried to touch on everything I really wanted to touch on. And I think I gave some content that was very open and
Mhm.
honest. That helps a lot of people. I wish someone would have told me things like that when I first started. But yeah, I think if anybody has any questions, my social media is just Town Shop Gifts. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram. Feel free to ask. I'm literally always here. I love women in business. It's just one of the most important things in my life. And I think, yeah, got to be some kind of special badass to do
Mhm.
the stuff that everybody on this call is doing. So huge kudos, because I understand and I see
Mhm.
you and I see how hard everyone's working and what it's like to be an entrepreneur, especially in this economy and everything that's happening. So I just think everybody here should be very proud of themselves, because it's huge. It's a big
Yeah.
deal.
Well, it's end to you, so thank you.
Yes,
So,
thank you
yeah.
so much for sharing your story with us.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for having me. It was a huge honor. It was fantastic.
That's great. Well, we're going to have you back, but probably doing something else. But we'll let you know, and it won't be during the summer months.
I hear you about that.
July long weekend, so
Oh my gosh,
And
you're
especially
busy.
not in the next couple weeks while you're trying to move and get that new.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
it's this weekend that the new place opens, right?
Friday, you guys.
Oh,
Friday.
What
I hear
time?
you.
What time?
10 o'clock, 10
Okay.
a.m.
Declan.
10 to
Awesome.
5.
And
So
then
are you running?
what time? Oh, sorry.
Are you running both stores then? Like you're?
Oh
Are
yeah,
you?
and the
Okay.
ice cream shack also opens Friday.
And you
I love
take
you. You're just.
possession of your house on Monday?
Yeah.
You take possession Monday?
Oh, no, we have possession. We have to be moved out on Monday.
Okay.
Yeah, and we did like a full flooring, fence, cabinet reno.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You're
so
almost crazier than we are at our house.
I
The flower
yeah.
shop, the greenhouse opens, and this opens, and yeah, we both. But I have my husband and I are and being in partnership with your husband. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But oh
Yes.
yeah, I feel for you. I hope your weekend goes wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all like wonderful, amazing things.
Yes,
Like
it
it's all
is.
fabulous and lots to be grateful for. But another thing in entrepreneurship is sometimes you got to remind yourself to stop and smell the roses a little bit, because
Yeah.
it'll just go by if you don't.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Celebrate your wins. So have fun doing that. Mhm.
Wins.
Yes.
Love
Yeah.
you guys.
Thank you, Taylor, so much.
Yeah. Thank you,
Anytime.
everybody.
Taylor.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thanks,
See
everybody,
you,
for
Megan.
joining today. And we're back in, I don't remember what our next one is.
We're back in June, and we're going to be with another one of your fellow makers from Prairie Apothecary.
Oh, fantastic.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
So, okay. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone, and happy Mother's Day to the moms out there, and have a wonderful rest of the week.
Awesome.
Okay,
Thank
see
you.
you ladies. Thanks
Bye.
so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I guess we can stop the recording.